Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Positivity Podcast on Anfield Index. My name is Matt McElroy, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. I am joined by Lubo Murkoff and Paul Jenkins. Paul, how are you doing today?
Very good. In continuation of our theme, as has always been the case, the sun is absolutely pelting down here, and it's a lovely summer's evening. Today started off, and the rain was pouring out of the heavens. So, as is normal when it comes to a Positivity Podcast recording session, the sun comes out. So maybe we should do this like every night in the week, and at that point, then the sun will never leave Northern Ireland. But I'm good.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's cooled off here in Seattle a little bit, so I'm enjoying the cooler weather here this morning, and just it's nice to be just in the summer and still going, and I'm glad you're enjoying the sun. So Lubo, how are you doing?
I am good. I was able, in the spirit of what Paul was saying, a spirit of the summer, even though not weather related but more CrossFit related, I was able to get my workout in this morning, and then I've been just a couch potato since then. I watched the Spurs Wolves game, I watched the Dortmund Bremen game. And I have actually the Union and Leipzig game on TV in the background as we're chatting. So it's been actually good to get back into watching teams that are not Liverpool, because there's a much lower level of stress and anxiety. And so I think this will be it this weekend, just in anticipation of the big game on Monday.
Yeah, that sounds like a very, very fun morning. So let's get into it. So our opening question today. So the start of the Champions League group stage is coming up fast. The draw should be at the end of the week. This week. So I wanted to ask you guys: do you have any favorite group stage games from previous seasons? So Lubo, do you want to get us started on that one?
So yeah, I actually thinking about it when you sent out the questions. I actually was thinking more which season, not just individual group games, but just the group stage campaign, I enjoyed a lot. And obviously last year was a lot of fun because we won all 6 games. Or did we? No, we lost to Inter. So
the Inter game was the round of 16.
Oh, it was round of 16. That's right. We won all 6. I was misremembering. But actually, I was thinking back to that 17-18 season, which is the first season that we had Mo Salah, and then we still had Phil for the group stages. And we didn't have great teams. So it was Sevilla, and we drew twice, and then we had Spartak, and then we had Maribor. But those games were just so much fun because we're scoring so many goals, even if we're not winning all the games. And this really was the first time that we got to see the front three, the famous front three. And also for that half season, we also had Phil. So it was really front four for a period of time. And I just remember those games being some of the most exciting, just most wonderful games to watch from just the type of just crazy energetic football. That actually might be still one of my most enjoyable Champions League campaign, getting all the way to Kiev. I know we didn't win in Kiev, but that actually might be one of my most favorite Champions League campaign. Even though a couple of years later, or the season after that, we ended up winning in Madrid, but that season was insane. So I would say as a group stage that I really enjoyed, it was that 17-18 season.
Yeah, that was a really good one. That was the season where Liverpool won twice 7-0 over the course of a six game period. And I agree with you that 17-18 Champions League campaign is probably my favorite. It was just fantastic all the way through, except for the last game. So for me, just as an individual game that I found to be like very fun was the 5-0 away at Atalanta. That was like a game where Diogo Jota just really announced himself as like the next big thing in the Liverpool front three. And Curtis Jones at 19 years old had a really awesome game. So I like that one. I look back and was like, that was a really fun game. And I enjoyed that one. Paul, what are your thoughts on favorites from the group stage over the years?
So there's a reason that us three guys do this Positively podcast together. It's because a lot of the stuff we talk about, we are similar minded and similar thinking, because I went straight to the 17-18 season and was like, I really love the group stages and that, especially the 7-0s. And so it's kind of like, yeah, we're kind of all singing off the same hymn sheet when it comes to this kind of stuff. I love there's a memory that sticks out for me. It's the Maribor 7-0. The whenever we were away playing in that orange top, because I was playing a gig that night, and the gig didn't. We got there for sound check to do the gig. I think I maybe listened to the first 15 minutes as I was driving to the bar to set up, and then I come in and like watched 20 minutes of the game on the screen and just couldn't believe what I was seeing before we actually went up for a sound check and stuff. So it's one of those nights where I kind of have that memory of the game because I was doing something else that I really loved as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's that kind of association, and I just remember, and I really loved that away kit. And it's probably my biggest regret from like that season. I didn't buy that top. And like anyone who knows me knows that I absolutely love football tops, and generally I will buy like Liverpool's home kit, their away kit, their goalkeeper kit, whatever, most seasons, unless there's something that I really hate. So like I have a lot of the kits from the last number of seasons. And for me, it's just that orange kit 7-0, just being completely surprised, because I think like Ox got a goal, and like just everyone was chipping in with goals that night. And then we were doing a gig afterwards, and like it was a good gig. We really enjoyed it. So for me, it's that kind of, that was the kind of group game that stuck out for me. And then possibly the PSG game. Was there a PSG game the season after that we won 3-2, where PSG came back to make it 2 each, and then did Bobby get the third goal to make it 3-2?
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
And that was the famous celebration where he puts his one hand over his eye because he had just gotten poked in the eye, and that was like right. three days afterwards. So
yes,
the funny thing, Paul, is like that was my like alternate game to the 5-0 at Atalanta.
There's a reason why we do this podcast together, like, isn't there?
And then the other one was, I also lament not buying the orange jersey and that white and green jersey from the 17-18 season. So,
yeah, it's hilarious. I don't think I have the white and green. I don't think I have it. But yeah, I love my boys have the white and green kit. They loved it actually. Quite fun. I think Noah has it with Lallana on the back of it. But the orange kit I just absolutely loved, and have like. There's a mate of mine has it, and every time he wears it, whenever we're playing five-a-side, and I'm so jealous that you have that top. But he's a medium, so there's no point me even saying that I'll buy it off him, because it'll never fit me. Like I'm a double XL.
I actually have the white and green from 17-18. It was Mo Salah, so it was. I wanted to buy that one, so I have it sometimes to wear it. It is a lovely kit.
Yeah, totally.
So.
All right. So
good times.
The good times. So
I will. Speaking of just other games that we won big, is that 5-0 at Porto, where Sadio Mane scored a hat trick, and that was just amazing. Another amazing game. It was also one of my favorites. So whenever they have highlights of Champions League games, I similar to the way that that Diogo just absolutely bossed in Atalanta with just crazy goals. It's the same that for that Porto game, and Sadio scoring those goals, especially the last one, which he thumped from like 30 yards. It was beautiful. So that's another game that I'll give a shout out to.
Wonderful. So now that we've covered some of the good times, let's take a look at what's happened at the beginning of the season this year. So Liverpool have opened the season with a 2-2 draw against Fulham and a 1-1 draw against Crystal Palace. So what I wanted to do to start our discussion here is try to identify positives from these results. It's starting with the 2 draws is a very suboptimal way to begin the season. So I wanted to ask, did any players stand out for you, or are there any general observations about tactics or analytics that seem promising from the first 2 games? So Lubo, do you want to get us started?
So I will correct you there. We actually have played 3 games that matter. And I know most people think that the Community Shield is just a glorified friendly. But I actually thought it was a really important game, and the fact that we won it, which, listen, it's a trophy. If Man City are going to put it on their whatever that was, foursome or whatever, formidables and nonsense, I will count it when Liverpool win it. Especially since Klopp had never won it with Liverpool, right? That was another one of those trophies or cups that Klopp had not won. He had lost twice the Community Shield before that, so winning it was important. But just the manner in which we played, and actually I watched the game on my phone at an airport in San Francisco, which was a little bit interesting. But to me, that was an important game, and we played really well. And I think we showed in that game that we could actually, when we have everybody available, and when we get our tactics right and the mindset right, we could just beat anybody. And so I think that, to me, that game is an important, just because I think it was a very good benchmark of what this team is capable of. And then unfortunately, then we had the situation with the 2 draws, and it feels a little bit like we had this even last season, and we've just had a little bit of a misfortune with disrupted seasons where players are not available, or they either came back from internationals with some issues. I think it happened with Fabinho and Thiago last year. I think Henderson as well. And now we have the situation with Kelleher and Jota coming back from internationals with injuries. And then just picking up these knocks at the beginning of the season. So it feels like it's a theme where Liverpool can't quite get started with just consecutive wins, or with just a string of wins. So that, from that perspective, it is unfortunate, and I think there's no sugarcoating it. The Fulham game did not start well. You could say that at the end we could have won it, but probably draw was deserved. And the Palace game again, it's strange. I think if you are the type of person who looks at statistics and looks at holistically at how Liverpool played, especially with 11 men, you could see that, okay, we are creating chances, we are creating big chances, we're taking a lot of really good shots, we're not scoring as many goals. We've only scored 3. In reality, probably could have scored 5 or 6. Probably should have scored about 5 or 6 in the league so far. So there are positives from that perspective, especially on offense. The team just hasn't quite clicked. And I think that the unfortunate thing is that with injuries and the disruptions and the inconsistencies, and also conceding first goals again, it's just so difficult when you concede the first goal, even against teams like Fulham and Palace, and then you dig yourself into a hole and you have to dig up. And the way the good thing is the way the team responded, both at Fulham in the second half as well as against Palace, despite going down to 10 men. I think it's encouraging. There's a lot of positives there that can be learned. It's just because you went into that hole a goal down, it just made it so difficult to come back and win it. And so we're up with 2 draws now, but
I mean, we'll just accept it as what it is. It's very frustrating. When I was looking back over previous seasons, it's in games 1 and 2 this year, there was a penalty conceded by Liverpool and a Liverpool player getting a red card. And so those things in previous seasons that weren't the injury crisis season like last season, there were no penalties conceded. The 2 previous seasons where Liverpool was at full strength, they conceded 1 penalty all season. So now that happens in the first game. Then for red cards, like that happens maybe once a year to Liverpool. Happened in the second game. So now you have consecutive games to start the season where a once a season type event happens. That then contributes to the draws, and then it makes you feel bad about the start because you've had these things where if they had been distributed differently through the season, then you would potentially like view how things are going quite a bit differently. So like in that way, you can look at those events and think that it's likely that they won't happen again, at least in the near term. And so some of what we will see going forward for Liverpool is like those bad things won't happen, and they'll get the results they need to start to win. And I don't think that we're in that dire of straits yet. We'll see how this goes out. So, Paul, what are you seeing in terms of positives from the start of the season?
The results are not positive, and there's no point trying to sugarcoat it and go, "Oh yeah, but 2 draws. We've turned 2 defeats into 2 draws." And while that may, of course, be the case, in both those games we went behind. In both those games we've brought it back. In the Fulham game we went behind again and then brought it back, as you've talked about, gave away a penalty, and like a scenario where we would kind of always have that under control. You're kind of going, like, why did Verge make that? It wasn't even a full lunge; it was just kind of a half a lunge and then pulled away. But it done enough for Mitrovic to get the knee contact and go down. Even when Trent was covering, you're just kind of going like those things we don't do. The Crystal Palace goal was, it was down to Nat trying to make a decision, not making a decision quick enough. Was he going to stick? Was he going to step back? Was he going to push forward? By the time he'd made the decision, Zaha was played onside, and Verge got back there, but slowed down because he probably thought Zaha was maybe going to turn inside him. So he was giving himself the space, to be able to counter that kind of maneuver, but also putting his trust in Ali making the save. When we know the stats from last year where we found that it was very much a specific thing that Liverpool did, where they actually let players take shots because they had faith that that Alisson was going to make the saves. So I would kind of look at it and go, we have created so many chances and conceded opportunities and goals in situations that we wouldn't normally do, if that makes sense, in the last couple of seasons. And so I would kind of go, like, on the whole, yes, it's not positive in terms of results, but I look at our play and our style of play, and we look at the likes of Harvey Elliott, who I thought on Monday night had a cracker game against Crystal Palace. And you go, well, there is real positives there because we've got injuries, and there's no point trying to sugarcoat that either. We've had injuries. None of them are like massive season-ending injuries. They're not, Virgil 4 games into the season, that's him out kind of thing. And Thiago's probably out in total, isn't it, 4 to 6 weeks by the time he'll get back. Jota should be back inside the next week or two. Bobby's back for this Monday night. Keita should be over his illness, which we've heard was quite a bad illness. So Naby should be back. The only one out is Ox, and you're kind of going, well, he doesn't play a whole heap anyway. So I kind of look at it and go, we're not, as you said, Matt, we're not in dire straits. It would have been lovely. And I know in our last Positivity podcast, we talked about the fact that the first 5 games should be 15 points. I said that very, very confidently. And now I'm got egg in the face because instead of having 6 points, we're sitting here with 2 points and we're not happy about how it's went. But like, I don't think our performances have been terrible. I think our performances have been good. It's just the results haven't went how we thought they were going to go. And it's weird because watching the Fulham game and the Palace game, there was still that air of optimism that we were going to go on and get the win. Do you know what I mean? We like, you still watched it kind of going, well, we're going to get that 3rd goal against Fulham. We're going to get that 2nd goal against Palace, and we're going to go on and win this. It just didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. Like whenever you watch Liverpool, or at least when I watch Liverpool, I always think they're going to come back and win, just because that's what they've done so many times. And so it's sort of out of the ordinary that they didn't.
Yes. Yeah,
and
exactly.
there were chances.
Yeah, there were, and I think that's the thing that we've learned over the last couple of seasons, that Jurgen has instilled that mentality of, if we go behind, it doesn't matter, we're going to come back and win. So sitting here today, it's nearly a surprise that we didn't come back and win those two games, because our mindset and the mindset of the players is very much, and as us as supporters, is very much, doesn't matter if we go behind, we're going to go on and win anyway, because as you said, we've done it so many times.
Yeah, a couple of things to add. So around the chances to win, I mean, obviously they were not great chances, but the Henderson shot that just went off the bar. I mean, you're talking about a couple of inches lower, and that was going in, and then you sit down and you say, okay, we didn't play great, but we're able to win, kind of a thing. And then against Palace, there were two shots, again, not great shots. One from Mo Salah that just barely went wide, and then Fabio. It's another just volley. I mean, it was inches. So again, those are the small margins. But if let's say Fabio shot goes in, I think that the feeling would be very, very different. 10 men coming back against the 11-man Palace and actually winning a game. I mean, then the story would be very different. The positivity around the club would be quite higher. And those are some of the small margins. But the other thing that you said, Matt, I did want to. I remember I was listening to the season preview of Under Pressure, and that Kenneth said, listen, last year we didn't concede any penalty. We're due one, and then boom, the first game, and it was a penalty where you don't expect Virgil to get done like that, to get fooled and to make a tackle. And normally he makes those tackles. Maybe 3 times a year, tackles like that, but usually they're outside the box, and then there's just a foul. And this time it just happened to be inside the box, and it's chances of that happening again this season are very low. And same with the red card. I mean, it's a red card that we get once a year. I remember one year Sadio got it, and then Robo got it last year, but it's not like something that is a huge problem for this team. So we just need to survive this period without having Darwin in the next 3 games, and then hopefully the bad luck when it comes to penalties and red cards. Hopefully it's done for the season, and we just basically have much better luck the rest of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next question I have is, do you guys think that Liverpool's title challenge is in jeopardy at all? And if not, what would you have to see to think it was? And so, Paul, do you want to get us started on that one?
Yeah, do I see it in jeopardy? No, not yet. We're 2 games into the season. I don't think anyone can say a title challenge is in jeopardy 2 games into the season, but we obviously know we're up against such a good team in Man City, and it's going to be a really complicated challenge to kind of to keep going toe-to-toe with them. But we only have to look to last season, and at one point we were 14 points behind them. Granted, 2 games in hand, but we still needed to go on and win those games. And we brought it back and finished the season with 1 point between us. So we're 4 points behind them currently. It's not panic stations by any stretch of the imagination. We play them twice. I also think that the teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs have strengthened to a degree where they may give City and ourselves a bit more of a game. We've already seen, like, Fulham have got off to a flyer in the league. They're, I think they beat Brentford today. They drew with us, and did they win midweek? So or last weekend. So I think Fulham or maybe didn't. So Fulham, they're not a walkover team. So we know that the teams. We always say this about the Premier League. The Premier League isn't a farmers' league yet. We haven't reached that point yet where Man City can just boss it and win every game that they play. It's not the Bundesliga, or it's not France, or it's not Spain where you have the 2 teams really going at it. So we know that the Premier League, you are going to get those odd results. You are going to get where Crystal Palace get a win, or where Brentford get a draw against us. So we know that I just look at it and go, there's so much more football to be played. For people to even suggest that the title is out of our hands and is away and is gone, I just find that kind of, I just find it kind of like ridiculous. And at the same time, we have a World Cup coming in November, which is going to give us a 5-week break. Who knows what players are going to come back from that injured for other teams? We know that we don't have a whole heap of players going to the World Cup, so I think it works in our favour. And even like some of our players who may go, like Trent and Hendo, they're not going to play for England. They're not going to play every game for England. They're going to come on as subs. I don't see Gareth Southgate starting Trent. He may start Hendo, but I don't know because Hendo hasn't really been available for many of the friendlies or hasn't played in the friendlies. So I just look at it and go, even if our players do go away, I think we're going to come back Christmas and have a lot of players not available. Whereas, City could have players who are away to the World Cup and come back with injuries. Chelsea could have the same. Spurs could have the same. So I just look at it and go, like, there's no way. This is going to be the weirdest season that we've seen in English football. So 2 games after it, 2 games into it, I don't think there's any point trying to make title challenge assumptions because it's just going to be nuts.
Yeah, and the other thing with this whole weird schedule stuff is, like, if you look at what happened last season, Liverpool had 2 draws and 2 losses against the bottom 16 teams. The 2 draws happened early in the season. They weren't the first 2 games. So, like, basically these 2 draws that we had to start the season are equivalent to that Brentford and Brighton draws. So as long as the pattern follows the same, everything should be okay. And then where Liverpool really need to make the gains is against the other teams that finish in the Champions League spots. So in those 6 games last year, all 6 were draws. And so you could have a situation where Liverpool win 3 and lose 3, but get 3 more points out of those games. So focusing on winning against your direct rivals is going to need to be an emphasis of focus, right? Like I was alluding to earlier, like, Liverpool are not in dire straits. So the thing that would have to happen for Liverpool to really start to, like, fade out of the title challenge is what happened 2 seasons ago, where you have, like, a huge injury crisis where players are not out for like 2 weeks, but they're out for the whole season. And so since that hasn't happened, like, everything is fine. And, the other thing that happened in that crisis season is Liverpool stopped scoring goals. So as long as Liverpool are creating chances, getting lots of shots, and scoring goals, like, they're going to be in the race. So, Lubo, what are your thoughts on this?
So to look at last season, the way you did, Matt, is we ended up with 92 points. And I actually think this year, because of how much stronger Arsenal and Chelsea and Spurs are, and also just, I think the Premier League, just teams look stronger, right? I think 92 points might be more than enough to win the title. In fact, we may actually see a season where a team wins with sub 90 points, right? We'll see how it happens. But last year, Liverpool got to 92 points and dropped points in 10 of those games. So 8 draws and 2 losses. So 10 games where we dropped points, right? And so I think just those are a little bit more spread out. We had around Christmas, because of COVID, we had 3 games where we dropped 7 points with, Leicester and Spurs and Chelsea. But otherwise, the games where we dropped points were kind of spread out a bit. And now, because we start the season and also you start with two draws, there's a panic. But the reality is we're always going to drop points in, I don't know, I would say 8 to 10 games is probably what is realistic to expect. So we still have quite a few games where we will still drop points. And as long as we can win, I would say about 28 games or so. That's probably where ideally 28, 29. If you can get to 30, you're probably winning the league. But looking at 28, that means we still have wiggle room, right? We've not dropped points in 10 games already, because then you're basically asking to go undefeated for the rest of the season. The other thing is, Man City last year, they dropped points in 9 games. In 9 games. They had three losses and 6 draws or something like that. So even they dropped points.
Six
right?
draws, 3 losses.
Right. So teams are going to drop points. We're going to drop points again. Man City is going to drop points again. That is going to happen. It's around, hopefully not more than that. So what I would love to see is for the confidence of the team, for the confidence of the fans, just you want to start putting a few wins together. I think that would be a huge boost. Hopefully it starts with Monday. But the reality is, whether you have 2 draws in the first 2 games, or you have 2 draws in the first 10 games, and, as long as it kind of works out, that you're not dropping beyond, it kind of evens out in the end. And I think the other thing that you mentioned, which will be really important this year, and luckily we don't play a lot of the other big teams for a while. I mean, obviously we're playing United on Monday, but are they a big team? I don't know. It's a questionable. But we drew with Spurs, we drew with Chelsea, we drew with Man City. Those are the games where ideally at home you want to start winning again. I have confidence that we can do that, right? So if we're able to beat Spurs at home and beat Chelsea at home, and especially if we beat Man City at home, that is going to go a long way toward compensating for the points that we dropped against Palace and at Fulham. And the funny thing is, there's this freak out about drawing at home to Palace, but people forget that Man City, they've lost twice in the last 3 or 4 seasons to Palace at home. I mean, Palace are kind of an awkward team, and these things happen. So it's not ideal. It's not, definitely not. The results are not great. You would have liked to have at least 1 win the first 2, but it's not the end of the world either.
Nope, not at all. So I think that's a good point in time for us to start looking ahead. So Liverpool, as you guys mentioned, play Manchester United on Monday night. Then after that, starting next weekend, the first busy period of the season starts, and that will see Liverpool play against Bournemouth, Newcastle, and Everton within a 7-day period. So as we look ahead, let's take a moment here to just review the squad and the depth options. So at goalkeeper, Liverpool have Alisson, Kelleher, and Adrian. At left back, Liverpool have Andy Robertson and Kostas Tsimikas. At center back, Liverpool have Virgil van Dijk, Joel Matip, Ibrahima Konate, and Joe Gomez. At right back, Liverpool have Trent Alexander-Arnold and Calvin Ramsey. In midfield, Liverpool have Fabinho, Thiago, Naby Keita, Jordan Henderson, James Milner, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Stefan Bajcetic. In the forward line, Liverpool have Mohamed Salah, Darwin Nunez, Luis Diaz, Diogo Jota, Roberto Firmino, and Fabio Carvalho. So looking at that squad, do you guys think there is enough depth there, at least for the first period of the season until we get to the World Cup? Paul, do you want to give us your thoughts?
Definitely. And I think you've left out one of the most important members of that squad, Nat Phillips.
Did I? Nat Phillips? Ah, yes.
Nat Phillips, you haven't got Nat Phillips in there, the Bolton Baresi. But no, do we have enough depth? Of course we have enough depth. We had enough depth last season. I think we have done well in our transfer dealings. Bringing in Carvalho, bringing in Calvin Ramsey, bringing in Darwin Nunez. Obviously, Mane going is a big loss, but let's also I like to think of Diaz as probably a signing who would have come in this summer, but was fast tracked due to the events that happened in January and when Spurs tried to get onto him as well. So you look at those 4 players that we've brought in. I think we've brought in youthfulness, and we've brought in quality, and we've brought in good players. I also feel that Um, the start of the season has been skewed slightly when it comes to depth conversations because of the injuries. And there's small injuries, they're niggly injuries. Jota's injury is the result of his international period. He came back, did he play a bit in a friendly and then tweaked it again? So it's just that, they're just wee niggly injuries that you've kind of started the season with that you probably think you aren't going to start the season with. And then obviously when we come to talk about teams and team lineups for games, you're kind of going, oh, well, he's injured and he's injured. We've got 12 injuries. That's the most injuries we've ever had as a team starting the season or whatever. But you look at the injuries and it's maybe a wee niggly muscle injury that keeps them out for 2 games and then they're back in, or Naby's case, an illness that kept them out. And so you're kind of going, well, actually, when it comes down to it, our starting 11 are still incredibly strong. I think Jamie Carragher said it on Monday Night Football on Monday night there. Our starting 11 was probably 9 of the 11 players who we would start with most games anyway. So when we look at that aspect of things, we should be okay going forward into these games. It's just about them rotating, bringing in the right players at the right time, and also bringing back these players from injury. And I think Naby Keita, I'm really hopeful that he plays on Monday night, just because for the creativity, for his ability just to kind of rotate with Thiago. So Thiago's out injured for another couple of weeks. If Naby can get 3 out of these 4 games where he's playing, I think that's good for him, good for his confidence, and good for the team. I think Harvey played brilliantly. We've got the Hendo conversation that always floats around, but we know he's going to get minutes and he's going to get games. He's going to play. I actually thought Milner did really, really well on Monday night against Palace. So I personally think we have got good depth, even with those small niggly injuries that we've had, because Bobby's back. So Bobby has missed 1 game, but he's back for Monday night. People at one stage were saying, "Oh, that's him out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. He might not be back before the international break." Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we overplay injuries, and actually, when we look at it, our squad depth is pretty good. I think Calvin Ramsey's obviously the odd one, because you would have thought he would have had a period of time in pre-season and probably being able to get 10 minutes in these kind of first games of the season, but because of the what they've identified physically with him in some of the training sessions and some of the physical sessions, there's a need to make sure that they treat him well at this stage of his career, to make sure then that nothing develops further down the line. So you can appreciate that and go, okay, well, that still leaves us a wee bit lighter at the right back scenario. But we have James Milner and we have Joe Gomez, who Joe Gomez on Monday night when he came on, I thought was again played excellent. Nearly playing the position of two players in one, to make sure that when we played with 10 men, we were still looking as if we had 5 attackers, because he was able to cover so well at the back. So I don't look at it and go, oh, we've got terrible depth. I think we're fine now until the World Cup. I don't think there's an issue. If there was a major injury in midfield, another, Thiago-esque, where someone's out for 6 weeks, then we might start to question how where we're at with things. But Jones can't be that far away from coming back. Naby's back. Thiago will be back in a couple of weeks. So, I personally don't think we're too bad. No, I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think what I read earlier this week is that they're expecting nearly everyone to be back by the end of the month. So by I think the midweek game against, is it Newcastle? Right. I think around there is when everybody's supposed to be back to full training, and then maybe Thiago's a few days after that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
by the 10th of September, everyone but Ox should be back from their current injuries. So they're all very short-term injuries, and I think that what they were covering on the Anfield Index Under Pressure podcast was that Liverpool have implemented sort of some new training monitoring or tactics with so sort of an AI algorithm that's supposed to help predict injuries. And it looks like it worked really well in the spring when they first implemented it. And now we get to the beginning of this season and it may not be functioning quite the way that they want. Like it might be a little too sensitive. And so we have guys that are, labeled as injured or they're out, but they may not actually be that injured. And so because they are out, people are concerned, but I don't think that the injuries are that bad. And so everybody should be back to full health and all options available by, the 5th or 6th game of the season. And then we're like, you're fully stocked and ready to go for the next 10 games plus the 6 Champions League group stage games. So I think there's definitely enough depth, enough quality there, especially for that first half of the season. And then, the World Cup actually provides a good opportunity. Like if Liverpool think they need to strengthen somewhere, if somebody does get injured, you can go out and make a deal because you got 5 weeks where it's a big break, and you can go and negotiate a deal, and that player could be in camp for Liverpool starting in December. So there are opportunities there if there is a need that arises. So, Lubo, what are your thoughts on the depth options for Liverpool?
I mean, mostly agreeing with you. I think that the fact that if everybody were available, right? If we didn't have injuries, then and you look at the squad, then you'd be thinking, okay, we're set. I mean, you'd not be expecting, players like Ox and some of these other to play at all. If everyone were available, it's just that there are injuries, and I think the two more serious injuries, one is Ox, and then the other one is Ibu. Even though hopefully Ibu is back sooner than later, but it's a little unknown with his knee, right? But that was another freak injury that happened that you don't expect. But the fact that it's mostly these knee injuries where players are out a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. As they're coming back, and the fact that they're all accompanied by a couple of bad results, and the transfer window is still open, leads to this panic, this hysteria to do something that, we don't have enough players, or the players we have are terrible, or the players we have are injury prone, and then that means you have to go and buy, another 5 midfielders, or 3 midfielders, or 2 midfielders, or whatever the magic number is. But then by the time the transfer window closes, or at least it's the deadline, which is where I would imagine most teams would be that are looking to sell would be holding out until the transfer deadline to sell anybody. By that time, you could have, hopefully we have most of the players back. I mean, Klopp hinted that Diogo and Curtis could be back in training after the Man United game. So obviously it's going to take them a couple of weeks to get up to speed. But that would be a huge boost. And I think then the question, Joel should be back as well. I mean, with him, it was more of a precaution, and maybe he'll just miss a couple of games just not to risk it. But then you have 3 senior center backs. We still have a Nat and Sepp as some depth. And so then it's a question of, when you get Diogo, when you get Thiago. But once, and then obviously the other complicating factor right now, which is not injury related, is the red card. All right, so we are a little bit stretched. But on the other hand, we also are still playing 1 game a week right now. So it almost feels like if there was a time for you to have a series of these unfortunate short-term injuries, now is the best time, because hopefully then it means that by the time you really start playing 2 games a week, Champions League is back, which is in early September. You would have most of the players back and available. And with 5 subs as well in the league, which is huge, it gives Klopp options to rotate, to manage minutes, to bring players in coming back from injuries into the games. And so I think from that perspective, assuming that there are no more bad injuries or no setbacks, if we can get most of the players back by the end of the month, I think we're in good shape. Now, does it mean that Liverpool are not going to consider transfers? They're always considering transfers, right? And I think that's one of the things that's, despite what journalists say, if an opportunity comes up, if a player becomes available, where Liverpool decided, you know what, we need to act now because this player may go somewhere else, and maybe we could just bring someone 6 months earlier rather than waiting for January or even a year earlier. Could they act? Yeah, I could see it happening, but at least as long as by the end of the month, most of these players that have these short-term injuries are back, we should be in good shape to go into that busy part of the season.
Yeah, Liverpool should be primed and ready to go, and they get that started on Monday. So, sticking with you, Lubo, what are you expecting from Liverpool against Manchester United in terms of either lineups or tactics, or what do you want to see in the game that's not just a win?
So, just another 5-0 win, that's not enough?
I guess that would be enough.
That would be enough. I mean, there are some question marks, right? There were from a lineup questions. I think if you can get Joe Gomez seems to be fine, and I think we're likely to see, possibly depending on how it goes, we may be able to see Joe and Virgil get a run of games together. Likely Joel will come back when we get started with the Champions League. So those three senior center backs will be rotating the way Klopp rotated last year with Virgil, Joel, and Ibu. So hopefully Joe comes in and has an excellent game, and he's going to need it because United do have some tricky, fast players, especially if Martial is back. And then having Bobby, I think it's going to be really huge because what will be really interesting for Man United is if they continue to insist on building from the back, playing from the back, and what they tried to do against Brentford. And Brentford was just able to press them and even had really a couple of goals that came from pressures, right? So I think if Man United decide to still play from the back, play out of the back, build out from the back, passing, I think having Bobby there would be huge. If I mean, for all practical purposes, Ten Hag may decide to just launch it long on every goal kick. So we'll see how that works. That probably makes the hair much more comfortable. But having Bobby back as well, I think could be huge. And then it's really then going to be hopefully just we can get started on the right foot, and if we have early chances, and I'm convinced we'll have a lot of good chances, it's just scoring that first goal. That is going to be so huge, where we are now at the lead away. If we're able to score the first goal, I know we'll create the chances, but if we're able to actually take one of those two chances and score that goal, then I think everyone's just going to be flying, and it could turn into a crazy score again. That's what I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping to see Joe and Bobby back in the starting lineup, and then I'm hopeful that we'll capitalize on some of the early chances and go up 1-0, ideally 2-0, and then just really after that just pick them on the break.
Yeah, and I think that, like, for me, like you're saying, is like the emphasis has to be on not conceding that first goal. We got to break that streak. So it's 6 Premier League games in a row where Liverpool have gone down 1-0, and that really needs to stop. So not conceding the first goal and then really focusing on getting a clean sheet. I think that for me that those have to be the priorities. And then, like you're saying, I'm very confident that Liverpool will score goals of their own. So that would put us in a really good situation, and Joe Gomez getting a start is definitely a key to that. And like you guys have said, he looked good on Monday when he came on, and it's sort of reuniting that partnership that he had with Virgil a few seasons ago. So hopefully there's more like that on Monday. So Paul, what are your thoughts on the game against Manchester United?
It's going to be interesting because I think it's Old Trafford, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think United fans will not want to see United be pragmatic and sit with 10 players behind the ball. I also think that Ten Hag will look at it and go, De Gea can't play out from the back, so we're going to have to launch the ball forward at least 50-60% of the time. If United play that way, that just plays straight into Verge and Joe's strengths and abilities, because they can lap that kind of ball up, all day long. Even Fabinho can tidy that up as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what way United approach this, because I don't think they can sit back and just hope that they can defend for 90 minutes against us. And at the same time, I don't see how they're going to be able to build their attacks too well because, as you said, Lubo, Brentford were able just to pick them off time and time again when they tried to play out from the back, scored 2 goals as a result of mistakes. And then Brentford got a cracker goal on the counter attack when United actually did try and attack. So and I think the rumours have been that Maguire's going to be dropped and he's going to go with Martinez and Varane as his 2 centre backs. And that to me just sounds like an ideal scenario for us because, there's no height there. But at the same time, our pace behind with Diaz and Salah, if Bobby's coming short to pick up those balls, you've got Salah, you've got Diaz, you'll have Harvey running, making those midfield runs. Hopefully Keita, or if it's not Keita, you'll have Hendo. You'll have someone, even Milner, making those kind of attacking midfield runs. I just don't see how United's defence will be able to cope with that. Like, it's famous last words. You don't want to sit here being incredibly confident, going, "Oh yeah, it's another 4-5-0 drubbing." But you look at it on paper and go, "Oh my goodness," like I have mates who are United fans and they're not looking forward to this game because they just cannot see how United can do anything against us. Because if they try to go long with their attacks, they know that we can deal with that pretty easily. And if they try to sit back, they also know that probably defensively they're not good enough to be able to handle, down their left. Or down their right, they're not going to be able to handle Robbo and Diaz or Trent and Mo and Harvey Elliott. So I'm looking at it kind of going, where Crystal Palace are able to set up and know that they're going to be a counter-attacking team and hope that they can get that one ball forward that Nat Phillips was ideal for them because he knew if they put Zaha on Nat Phillips, that was going to be okay. He was going to outpace them all day long. I just look at it and go, United, if it's Martial, if it's Rashford, if it's whoever, Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk, they're pacey. They should both be able to kind of give a lot more of competition for that kind of over the top ball. I don't see what United's tactics can be. I think we can. I think in the midfield, and this is probably one of the games where you look at it and go, we should be able to outmaneuver Man United in the midfield because that's where we won the game last season. And Naby had a stormer that day, and he got on the score sheet himself. So I just look at it and go, we definitely should be able to tactically overrun them. And I think you're right. Getting that first goal, I think we just need to take one of these early chances. We create the chances early in games, we just don't take them. A goal after 8 minutes would just be ideal. It would just be super.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, a goal after 8 and up 3-0 after 30, and then just
exactly.
Cruise.
Yeah.
That's a good point for us to bring this podcast to a close. So, Lubo, do you want to give us your final thoughts or plugs?
I just hope that one is we win on Monday and then just get a few more wins in a row, just really to get the confidence going and get the fans off the ledge. And hopefully that also coincides with quite a few of these injured players coming back, building a bit of a rhythm. So when we do start those 2 games a week period, we have players available. We have players that are already match fit. They have some rhythm, and Klopp can really start rotating heavily. And start putting up the wins in both the league and in the Champions League. So it's just it feels a little bit like the first win, the first clean sheet is the hardest. Hopefully that is on Monday, and then we go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Paul, your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is that I hope the next time we're coming to do a Positively podcast, it's being positive because we've had 4 league wins. We've maybe got off to a good start in the Champions League and had a win there. And we're not in the case of we're trying to pull the positive bones out of a bad situation, but we're actually sitting here properly positive and buzzing because everyone in the Liverpool supporter world is absolutely buzzing as well because we're all positive that we've made a good start to the season. I hope that the next time we chat, we're sitting going, do you remember that time we had 2 draws, but we've got past that now and we're actually doing really well.
Yeah, absolutely. The next time we record in 3 or 4 weeks' time, I am hoping that we're just talking about 4 or 5 wins. So we'll bring it to a close there. Let's get back to winning ways starting on Monday. Thank you for listening, and until we talk to you again, up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.